A plane vanishes in 1955 and then lands 37 years later. The world's biggest particle collider might have cracked open reality itself, and people swear things have felt off ever since. And is it possible that we're all immortal? I'll explain later. These are disturbing signs that you're already living in a parallel universe. Is it possible that we're all immortal? Not in the way that you'll never age or anything like that, but in a more like you'll never die kind of way. It's called quantum immortality, and it's one of the weirder consequences of quantum physics. Here's the basic idea. Most of us have probably heard of the theory that multiple realities form from every decision we make, every situation we find ourselves in. In quantum mechanics, there's a theory that every time something happens, the universe splits, creating a parallel universe where things went the other way. For example, let's say you're walking across the street and you nearly get hit by a bus. Close call. Well, in another reality, the bus didn't miss. In another, you were nowhere near it. In another, the bus didn't even show up. Now, you, the observer, are at the center of your own timeline. Here's where the immortality aspect comes in. If you can't observe a version of the universe where you're dead, you'll always end up in the one where you survive. That means every time you should have died, you just didn't. At least you don't experience the version where you did. From your point of view, you'll always wake up in the version of reality where you lived. Sure, other people might attend your funeral in their timelines, or the ones you used to be in, but you never actually experience death. You just keep shifting into the universe where you dodged the bullet. Now, I'm not exactly sure where old age comes into this. I mean, eventually we all do die, right? But I don't know, maybe reincarnation plays into this somehow. Look, it's totally unprovable, but it's a neat idea, and at the very least, maybe there's a version of all of our lives where we make it to 100 and pass away peacefully in bed, rather than dying in some awful accident or something. Pan Am Flight 914 is a story that keeps getting passed around because, real or not, it's an interesting story. A Pan Am Douglas DC-4 with 62 people on board took off from New York headed to Miami on July 2nd of 1955. It vanished. Radio contact was lost, and it was presumed to have crashed, but then something weird happens. Just not for another 37 years. In 1992, the same plane allegedly appeared out of nowhere on the radar of an airport in Venezuela. Air traffic control made contact and the pilot sounded confused, saying they were en route to Miami and due to land at 9:55 a.m., as if no time had passed. The story goes there were witnesses who said the tower told the pilot where he was, which reportedly freaked him out. He supposedly panicked, restarted the engines, and took off again before anyone could stop him. The plane eventually landed in Miami shortly afterward, but authorities supposedly kept the incident quiet. Some versions of the story say the passengers were dazed, carrying outdated newspapers and IDs with no idea that they just jumped forward in time. But is this just an urban legend, or did something actually unexplainable happen that was quickly covered up? The Large Hadron Collider has been at the center of multiple wild theories ever since it switched on in 2008. Officially, it's a massive particle accelerator built by the European Organization for Nuclear Research, or CERN. It was created to smash atoms together at insane speeds in order to study the makeup of the universe. But there are plenty of people who think that something very strange happened when this thing was switched on, that a sort of Pandora's box was unleashed. One theory is that when the LHC fired up, there was this shift, that it either created a parallel universe or blended ours with another. The timing does kinda line up with when people started reporting strange phenomena on a big scale. The Mandela Effect, for example, really exploded in popularity around the same time, but people also started sharing more personal stories on internet forums about how time just didn't seem to be moving right anymore, or how reality felt off in subtle ways they couldn't quite explain. And it didn't help that in 2016, CERN released a video of what looked like a human sacrifice ritual taking place on their grounds, which they later said was a prank. And do I believe that? Yeah, first of all, I just think that's a funny idea. I love that they went there. And I also just don't think there was a genuine ritual sacrifice captured on camera here. For anyone who is already skeptical though, they were even more skeptical after this. But what do you think? Have you noticed weird shifts in your reality since 2008? I'll give you this, it is a weirder world we're living in. A woman named Pam Reynolds was brain dead for over an hour. Somehow, she came back describing things she couldn't have possibly known. In 1991, Reynolds underwent a rare procedure called a standstill operation to remove a brain aneurysm. Her body temperature was lowered significantly, her heartbeat and brain activity were completely stopped, and her eyes were taped shut. She was clinically dead, and yet, after she was revived, she gave eerily accurate descriptions of the operating room. She even described the exact surgical tools being used and recounted conversations between doctors. That's because when she was under, she claimed that she floated out of her body and saw herself laying on the table before being pulled toward a tunnel of light. She said she met dead relatives there who communicated with her without speaking, and that she needed to be convinced to return to her body, which of course she did. But what exactly happened here? How could someone with no brain function, no sensory input, describe real-time events in such clear detail? Till this day, there's never been a definitive explanation for this. Ong's Hat was a real village in New Jersey, now abandoned. In the late 80s though, pamphlets and documents started surfacing claiming secret experiments happened there involving interdimensional travel. So a group called the Institute for Chaos Studies allegedly set up a lab in the Pine Barrens. There they built a device known as the Egg, a sensory deprivation pod meant to alter consciousness. The theory was that under the right conditions, the pod could shift someone into a parallel universe. Well, supposedly it worked. Some of the researchers vanished, remaining in some alternate version of Earth. These so-called documents circulated in zines and early internet forums. Nowadays, this is mostly seen as a hoax, and I'm sure a lot of people also saw it that way back then, but some still insist there was something strange actually going on here, that maybe, at the very least, the story was some sort of cover-up for actual experiments with, fictional elements used to discredit anything and distract people from anything disturbing that was actually happening. I don't know, what do you guys think of this one? Bold Street has become a rather infamous area in Liverpool, where dozens of people have claimed to experience time slips. One story goes that a young woman named Imogen had gone shopping for some things for her sister's new baby. As she walked toward the corner of Lord Street in Whitechapel, she was excited to see a new mother care store that she hadn't noticed before. Inside, she browsed through items like baby cardigans and bibs, surprised at how cheap everything was. When she went to pay with her credit card at the front, the cashier looked confused and called the manager over. The manager turned and told Imogen that they didn't accept credit cards, only cash. Since she had none on her, Imogen left empty-handed, but when she told her mother what happened, her mom looked stunned. The mother care store had closed years ago, and the spot was now a bank, the very bank her mom used. And that's not the only weird story to come out of Bold Street. In 2006, a young man named Sean was caught shoplifting in Liverpool. While fleeing down Hanover Street, he turned into Brooks Alley, a dead end. As he caught his breath, he suddenly felt strange, like the air had thickened. He basically just waited for the security guard to follow, but no one came. Confused, Sean stepped back out into Hanover Street and instantly knew something was wrong. The street looked older. The cars were vintage. Roadworks he'd seen earlier were gone. People walked by in these outdated clothes, and there were traffic lights where there shouldn't be any. Sean pulled out his phone. There was no signal. He rushed towards Bold Street and spotted a newspaper stand. The date on the paper was May 18th, 1967. Terrified, Sean ran to a jewelry store where he pulled out his phone again, and this time it worked. Just like that, he was back in the present. Later, when he told his story to the local press, he repeated it in the exact same way every time, and while people assumed he made it up to dodge shoplifting charges, the newspaper followed up, and not only did they find his account consistent, but all the historical details he described, down to the clothes, the street layout, businesses, they were accurate for Liverpool in 1967. Even the security guard kinda backed it up. He said when he chased Sean into Brooks Alley, the kid had simply vanished. On November 9th of 1986, Spanish industrial expert Pedro Olivia Ramirez was driving from Seville to Alcalá del Guadira late at night. He knew the road well, but But suddenly, after a curve, everything changed. The road widened into 3 massive lanes in each direction, surrounded by tall, strange buildings that he didn't recognize. On one side were huge glowing industrial buildings, on the other were these towering apartment buildings with 20 floors or so. None of it made sense, and things just got weirder from there. Pedro started to feel a wave of heat inside his car, along with strange voices, almost like a distant choir. One voice told him he'd been transported to another country or possibly another planet by extraterrestrials. And for the next couple hours, he drove through this strange place, even stopping a couple times to walk along the roadside and study the odd grass and the bizarre traffic. Notice that cars passed him every 8 minutes or so, like clockwork. Eventually, Pedro reached a road sign with directions to his home or where he was coming from. Well, he chose to retrace his steps, but he suddenly found himself parked in front of his house, and he had no memory of how he got there. He tried to retrace his path, but the wide roads, the buildings, and the strange signs were gone now. And somehow the trip, which should have only taken him about 30 minutes, had lasted over 3 hours, and he'd burned way more fuel than normal. Over the last few decades, thousands of people have vanished in national parks and forests across North America. Some of these cases are a lot stranger than others and share some eerie patterns. The person disappears suddenly, often in the middle of a group, only to be found, if they're found at all, in places that had already been searched, sometimes miles away, sometimes in impossible locations like high cliffs or extra dense parts of the woods that would be super hard to reach even with gear. And in some of these cases, the missing person reappears with zero memory of where they've been or how long they were gone. Former police officer David Paulides has been collecting these cases under what he calls Missing 411. He specifically filters out incidents with logical explanations so that what's left are stories that truly don't make sense. In some reports, tracking dogs have refused to follow the scent or get visibly spooked. Clocks act strangely, storms roll in out of nowhere, and in a few extreme examples, the person claims they were watched or lured by something they couldn't quite explain. One theory is that these people aren't just getting lost, they're slipping through cracks in reality. In the early 80s, rumors started circulating about strange military experiments happening at Camp Hero, an old Air Force station in Montauk, New York. The story went that there was psychic testing going on, time travel, and the opening of gateways to other dimensions. A few people had come forward saying they'd been a part of it, either willingly or as kids who were abducted into the program. According to these accounts, the government was trying to weaponize the human mind. They supposedly succeeded in creating psychic soldiers who could manipulate objects, see and hear things that were going on from very distant locations, or even open dimensional rifts. There's one story where they allegedly opened a portal too wide and something came through, something not human. Supposedly, they shut the project down after that. Another account describes a time chair, which let people travel into the past or future, but often came with disorienting side effects. Of course, there have never been any official documents that have confirmed any of this. It's easy to pass this off as an urban legend, but the thing is, some of the same people involved in these stories also had ties to MKUltra, which was very real and proven. So that's kind of given the Montauk Project a little more validity to some. As always though, what do you think? This next one goes back to 1943, in the middle of World War II. The story is that US Navy tried to make a ship invisible to radar at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. The ship was the USS Eldridge, but according to people who claim to have witnessed it, something much stranger happened. That's putting it lightly. Something cosmically horrific happened. They say the ship vanished completely and then reappeared hundreds of miles away in Norfolk, Virginia, and when it came back, the crew was not well. First off, there were a ton of them missing, and many who had shown back up with the ship were quite literally with the ship. They'd fused into the metal. The lucky ones just went insane, claiming to have seen something on the other side. The Navy has always denied that anything like this happened, but the story came to light through a man named Carl Allen, who sent letters detailing the events later. Of course, he was written off for being unstable, but the story took off anyway. There's even an X-Files episode about this one. To be fair, X-Files goes in some incredibly weird directions, so this is in no way adding validity to the story, but it does go to show just how much the Philadelphia experiment, as it came to be called, was talked about. What's interesting about this story is how specific it is, too. It doesn't really feel like your typical urban legend. It sounds more like someone trying to explain something that they don't fully understand. Who knows, maybe something strange really did happen that day. Maybe there really was an experiment that caused a breach in the fabric of reality. In the small town of Taos, New Mexico, people have been hearing a strange sound since the early 90s, a low-frequency hum, like a distant engine running, a hum that never seems to go away. Not everyone hears it, but for those who do, it's constant. Where does it come from? Well, that's the mystery. But the people who hear it report headaches, insomnia, and just overall dread, like something's just off. The government has sent scientists to investigate. They've recorded the environment, tested the soil, the air, everything, but they couldn't find what was actually causing it. The hum isn't picked up by microphones or equipment, so it's basically impossible to study. It's almost like it's happening inside the victims' bodies, which is about as terrifying as it sounds, no pun intended. Now, there are theories as to what this could be. Electromagnetic interference, underground drilling, some sort of secret military technology, but is it possible people are hearing something even stranger than that? Like an echo from another dimension? Maybe the hum isn't a sound at all, but more of a frequency from another place, something leaking in. Just a thought. This story popped up on Reddit a couple years back from a user who deleted their account shortly after posting. Here's what they wrote. I've lived in the same apartment for about 4 years. It's nothing fancy, 1 bedroom, open kitchen, small balcony, but about 2 weeks ago I came home from work and noticed something weird. The door handle felt different, like it was just slightly lower than I remembered. Same styles, same lock, just off. When I walked in, everything looked normal at first, but my keys were in a different bowl than I usually leave them. I thought maybe I was just tired, but then I noticed my bookshelf. There were 2 books on it that I don't own. One of them was a collection of short stories by Ray Bradbury that I'd been meaning to buy but hadn't yet. The other was a guidebook for a city I've never been to. I asked my girlfriend if she bought them over. She said no. I called my landlord just to be sure no one had entered while I was at work. He checked. Nothing. Since then, a few other tiny things have changed. A painting in the hallway is an inch higher. My phone background changed to a photo I don't remember taking. I know how this sounds, but it feels like I came back to a version of my life that's almost the same, just not quite. Guys, I can't speak to the validity of stories like this on Reddit. If you are experiencing things like this, go to a doctor. Just, some advice. In December of 1900, 3 lighthouse keepers stationed on the remote Flannan Isles off the coast of Scotland vanished without a trace. When a relief crew arrived after a storm had delayed them, they found the lighthouse empty. Everything inside was undisturbed. Clocks had stopped, meals were left on the table, and one of the men's coats was still hanging on a hook. The only clue was a logbook entry mentioning a violent storm, but the weather had actually been pretty calm the day they supposedly wrote it. No bodies were ever found. The official explanation is that a massive wave may have swept them out to sea, but that doesn't add up. Why were there no signs of struggle, no debris, nothing washed up? It was like they just stepped off the island and vanished. For decades, amateur astronomers and conspiracy theorists have pointed to something strange orbiting Earth, an unidentified object known as the Black Knight satellite. The story really kicked off in the 50s when both the US and Soviet Union detected something unusual in orbit. It wasn't one of theirs. It didn't match the movement of any known satellites at the time. And then there's the really weird part. In the 70s, images taken during a NASA mission seemed to show this strange, jagged object in orbit, and it didn't look like space junk or any known satellite. Some believe it's been up there for 13,000 years, sent by an ancient civilization or aliens as a monitoring device. Nikola Tesla himself claimed to have received a repeating signal from space in the 1890s, and some now connect that to this. No one knows exactly what it is. NASA says the object in the photos is just a thermal blanket that came loose during a mission, but that explanation doesn't sit well with people who've followed the story for decades. If it really is something watching us from above, then who or what put it there, and how long have they been watching? When James Leininger was just 2 years old, he started having violent nightmares about crashing in a plane. He'd wake up screaming about being stuck in a fire or yelling things like airplane crash and the little man can't get out. During the day, he started naming aircraft parts most toddlers wouldn't know existed, things like drop tanks and Corsairs. He also kept saying he'd flown off a ship called the Natoma and that his name had been James. His parents eventually looked into it and discovered the USS Natoma Bay was a real World War II aircraft carrier. They found a pilot on its roster named James Huston Jr. who died in combat. The plane was shot down and exploded. James the toddler also named another pilot from that crew who was still alive at the time, and when they met, the child recognized him instantly. On top of that, James could recall specific events and details of battles that matched Navy records. His parents had never really talked to him about this stuff at home, and none of it was in any children's books. As he got older, the memories started to fade, but for a while, it seemed like this kid was actually remembering a past life. At 4 years old, Shanti Devi in India started insisting that she had another family in a different town. She told her parents she wasn't really their daughter, that her real name was Lugdi Devi, and she'd lived in Mathura, about 75 miles away. She said she died giving birth to a son and gave the full name of her husband, the town he lived in, what he looked like, and even the layout of their house. At first, everyone thought she was just making things up, but when they actually looked into it, her descriptions lined up. A man named Kedar Nath lived in Mathura, had a wife named Lugdi who died during childbirth, and had a son. When Shanti met him, she instantly recognized him and greeted him like she knew him. She also correctly pointed out places and people in towns she'd supposedly never seen. Word got around and the case became so well known that a commission was set up by order of Gandhi himself. They interviewed witnesses, retraced her claims, and found that almost everything she said had a real-world match. Cameron McCulley was a regular kid growing up in Glasgow, until around age 5 when he started talking non-stop about a place called the Isle of Barra. He claimed he used to live there in a white house by the sea with a black and white dog and a family that he really missed. He talked about planes landing on the beach, his old dad named Shane Robertson, and how his old life had ended when he, quote, fell through. His parents had never even mentioned Barra before, but Cameron was convinced. Eventually they took him to the island, and it turned out there really was a white house by the sea, just like he described. But I mean, whatever, right? A white house, it's not like there aren't any other white houses in the world. Well, this one belonged to a Robertson family, again, just like young Cameron had described. Cameron was walking around like he'd been there before, naming things and pointing out details that lined up with what he'd talked about before. There were no obvious signs of how he could have known any of this. And his memories seemed emotional, not just factual. It didn't seem like he was just repeating stuff. It was as if he was genuinely grieving a life he'd left behind. In 1987, a little girl named Purnima Akaniak was born in Bakumana, Sri Lanka. She was like most kids, except for the fact that she kept talking about being crushed by a heap of iron. She'd also always tell her mother things like people who drive over others are bad, which is of course true, but it was odd that she seemed particularly focused on that specific thing, driving over someone. And when her mom got upset about a car accident that had happened one day, Purnima calmly told her not to worry because she had also died in a crash. She said a big vehicle hit her and she never made it to the hospital. Things got weirder when she started saying she used to make incense, and that her name had used to be Jinadasa. She also described 2 types of incense, how she made them, and how she used to walk around with her hands behind her back, supervising workers. She also claimed she lived across the river from a temple, which was over 140 miles away from her actual home. When her family finally took her there, she started pointing out familiar places and recognized people by name. And man she used to be, who'd died in a car accident, he was real. His name was Janandasa Pereira, and he died in 1985, 2 years before Purnima was born, when a bus ran him over while he was selling incense on his bike. And to top it off, she had a birthmark exactly where Pereira's chest had had been crushed. Since childhood, Jenny Cockle would have recurring dreams of being a woman named Mary Sutton, who lived in Ireland, had several children, and died young in the 1930s. As she got older, Jenny became obsessed with finding out if Mary was real. She started piecing together what she remembered, names, locations, and the layout of Mary's old home. Eventually, she tracked down a town in Ireland that matched. She discovered that a woman named Mary Sutton had lived there and had died, leaving behind children. Jenny eventually reached out to them, now elderly, and met with them in person. And to their surprise, she knew all these intimate details about their lives, their personalities as kids, and even specific incidents from their childhood that had never been published or shared. One of the sons in particular became convinced that Jenny really was his mother reincarnated. He said she had the same mannerisms and emotional connection to them that Mary had. Imad Alawar was just under 2 years old when he started telling his parents about a life he had claimed to have lived in another village about 25 miles from where he was growing up, in Lebanon. He gave names, described a yellow car he used to own, and spoke about specific relatives, neighbors, and his former job. His family wasn't all that worried at first, but when Imad suddenly ran to a stranger on the street one day and hugged the man as if he recognized him, and it turned out this person was actually from the town Imad had claimed he'd lived in his past life, well, this intrigued his parents. Eventually, they contacted Dr. Ian Stevenson, a psychiatrist who'd been studying cases of past life memories. Stevenson documented that Imad made 47 specific statements about his supposed past life. When Stevenson and the Alawar family visited the town, it turned out that 44 of those 47 statements matched up with the real-life story of a man named Ibrahim Bouncy, who died 5 years before Imad was born. Another important detail is that the child Imad would often talk about how thankful he was for being able to walk. Well, Ibrahim died around the age of 25 after spending a year in a sanatorium. He had tuberculosis and was confined to a bed during the final part of his life. Barbro Karlin was a Swedish writer and poet. When she was just 2 years old, though, she started telling her parents that she was Anne Frank. Her family wasn't religious, and she hadn't been taught anything about the Holocaust yet, but Barbro described details of Anne Frank's life that she shouldn't have known. What the secret annex looked like, how the rooms were arranged, and the names of the people who'd lived there. When her parents finally took her to Amsterdam at age 10, she led them straight to the building without a map or a guide. Once inside, she pointed out changes that had been made to the house since she had lived there. She also seemed terrified of men in uniforms, even if they were just policemen on the street. Barbro went on to become a well-known writer and stood by her memories well into adulthood. She said she remembered parts of her death, the fear of being taken, and a sense of injustice that followed her for years. Seme Tetsumus was born with a misshapen right ear, which his parents chalked up to a birth defect, but when he started talking, he claimed it was from being shot in the head in a past life. He'd said he'd been a man named Salim Fasli, a farmer from another village who'd been killed while working in his fields. He recognized people Salim had known, including his widow, and called her by name. He also gave names of Salim's kids and talked about private conversations and daily routines that no stranger would realistically know. Dr. Ian Stevenson, the same researcher who studied Imad Alawar, investigated Sami's case and found it pretty compelling. Salim had in fact been shot dead, and Sami's ear deformity was right where the bullet had entered. The way Sami talked about Salim's life was natural, like he was recalling memories instead of making things up. One of the eeriest parts was how Sami's personality was different from other kids in his village. He was more serious and cautious, traits Salim's family said matched the man that they had remembered. Chennai Chumale Wong was born in Thailand in 1967. When he was just 3 years old, he started saying he used to be a school teacher named Bua Kai. He claimed he'd been killed while riding his bicycle to work. His story got weirder when his family noticed he had two unusual birthmarks, one on the back of his head and another above his left eye. Well, Buakai was a real person who had died, and according to his autopsy report, the entry and exit wounds of the bullet that killed him matched up perfectly with Chennai's birthmarks. Chennai kept insisting he wanted to go home and would say the name of the village where he said he'd lived. Eventually his grandma took him there, and without hesitation he walked up to Buakkai's old house. He correctly identified the man's parents and described items that had been in the home years earlier. He also remembered details like the name of Kai's bicycle and how he used to teach math. This case takes a turn from creepy to downright chilling. So a 3-year-old boy in Golan Heights, a region between Syria and Israel, started telling his family he'd been killed in a past life. He said he died when he was attacked with an axe and was buried in a nearby field. Elders in the community followed him to the spot, where they dug up a human skeleton with a wound in the skull, right where the boy said the axe had struck. Not only that, but the boy claimed to remember the name of his killer. When they confronted the man, he allegedly confessed. The whole thing was documented by Dr. Eli Lash, a respected physician known for his public health work. He said the boy's memories were disturbingly detailed, right down to the type of axe used. The Large Hadron Collider, or the LHC, is one of the most impressive scientific machines ever built, designed by the European Organization for Nuclear Research to smash particles together at near light speeds, because why not? But for all its scientific greatness, there are a lot of conspiracies surrounding it. That the LHC can create black holes or open portals to other dimensions. People have even talked about the possibility of the thing accidentally ripping a hole in our reality and letting something from another universe slip through. One of the more popular conspiracy theories is that CERN, or CERN, is trying to open a gateway to another dimension. The idea is that by colliding particles at such high speeds, they could create a rift in spacetime, allowing access to parallel universes. There's also a theory that CERN is trying to contact alien beings or gods from these other dimensions, and that the machine's true purpose is far more sinister than just smashing atoms, which is already pretty nuts as it is. Now, none of these theories have any real scientific backing. The scientists at CERN have repeatedly told the public that the LHC is safe and that it can't create black holes or tear open the fabric of the universe. But to be fair to the conspiracy theorists out there, I mean, they would say that, wouldn't they? Who's gonna come out and tell the public, like, yep, oh yeah, we've been just trying to open a gateway to another dimension and make contact with entities in other realms. Don't mind us. Keep giving us your tax dollars, please. The Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or AATIP, operated from 2007 to 2012. It was a top-secret government unit tasked with investigating UFOs. Now, a few years back, a series of AATIP documents were declassified. Apparently, they'd also been looking into invisibility, cloaking, anti-gravity technology, wormholes, and even extra dimensions. Nick Pope, who used to head up the British government's UFO research, got his hands on some of the documents related to AATIP. The exact nature of their work is still a bit of a mystery, but what's clear is that they were looking into some really strange technology. Serious research was being done on things that could potentially bend the laws of physics as we know them. What's even more interesting is the connection to UFOs. The Pentagon confirmed that AATIP investigated footage of Navy pilots encountering a strange glowing object near San Diego. The object rotated and had a mysterious aura around it, and no one's been able to explain what it was. Now, when the AATIP claimed that they looked at UFOs as less of a possible alien threat and more of a foreign threat, that other countries could be developing technology far ahead of the US. UFO does just mean unidentified flying object after all, but Nick Pope thinks that maybe AATIP may have known more than what they were letting on, and that the talk about foreign advanced aerospace threats was just a cover. If they really were delving into things like wormholes and extra dimensions, could they have been trying to figure out how UFOs move the way they do by bending space and time? Were they exploring technologies that could open doorways to parallel realities? The Avro Canada VZ9 Avro car was a real project that almost sounds too crazy to be true, an attempt to build a real flying saucer. Back in the 50s, during the height of the Cold War, the US military was trying to find new ways to get the upper hand, and that included experimenting with some pretty wild ideas. The Avro car, which was developed by Canadian aircraft manufacturing company Avro Canada, was one of those ideas. It was supposed to be a vertical takeoff and landing, or VTOL, aircraft that looked just like the UFOs seen in countless B movies at the time. The idea was that this flying saucer could hover like a helicopter, but fly like a plane. It didn't work out. The Avro car had all sorts of problems, mainly with stability and speed. When they tested it, the thing could barely get off the ground, and when it did, it was wobbly and hard to control. By 1961, the project was scrapped. But maybe that's not where the story ends. Some conspiracy theorists believe that the Avro car was just the public face of a much deeper, secretive project, and that the military continued working on flying saucer technology in secret. Some think that the US military may have actually succeeded in creating an advanced flying saucer. Project Mannequin is said to be a secret program run by the British and US government, focusing on creating super soldiers. According to the theory, Project Mannequin involved serious experiments on human subjects, trying to enhance physical and mental abilities using advanced technology, even tapping into other dimensions. The idea behind this project is that the government was, or possibly still is, trying to create soldiers who could do what no normal person can. Enhance strength, telepathy, and even the ability to manipulate time and space. And how is this achieved? Well, through alien technology recovered from UFOs. Now, some whistleblowers, and yes, there are actually people who have come out claiming to have been part of this project, well, they say that Project Mannequin was involved in experiments with time travel and parallel universes. The claim is that by understanding how different dimensions work, the government could train soldiers to move between these realities, giving them a huge tactical advantage. After World War II, the US government secretly brought over more than 1,600 German scientists, engineers, and technicians to work on American projects. The thing is, many of these scientists had worked for the Third Reich, and some were even members of that party. This isn't a conspiracy, this actually was a thing. The US was in such a rush to get ahead of the Soviet Union in the Cold War that they didn't care. They thought these scientists were going to give them the edge in all sorts of scientific fields, mainly when it came to rocket technology. One of the most famous scientists brought over was Wernher von Braun, who had been heavily involved in the Third Reich's rocket program and later played a major role in the US space program. But was there more to Operation Paperclip than your more conventional scientific pursuits? There have always been rumors that these scientists were also involved in more controversial research, like work in mind control, psychological warfare, and possibly even experiments related to alternate dimensions and parallel realities. The High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, or HAARP, was and is very controversial to this day. Officially, HAARP was a research program in Alaska designed to study the ionosphere. It used a huge array of antennas to send high-frequency radio waves into the ionosphere. Scientists hoped this research could help improve communication systems, navigation, and weather prediction, but there were a lot of people who were highly skeptical about this. HAARP became a target for tons of conspiracy theories, mainly that it was a secret government project designed to control the weather, cause earthquakes, or even manipulate people's minds. Others took it a step further even, suggesting that HAARP was being used to open portals to other dimensions or parallel realities. The idea behind these theories is that by bombarding the ionosphere with radio waves, HAARP could somehow tear open the fabric of space-time or create wormholes that connect our world to alternate realities. Some theorists believe that HAARP was trying to tap into these other dimensions for military reasons, maybe to gain access to advanced technology or even to communicate with beings from other realities. I mean, if you're dipping into other realities and tearing into them, why not talk to the people there? You'd probably have a lot of questions to answer for them. The Montauk Project, a supposedly top secret government program that may or may not have been part of the inspiration for stranger things. It's said that this project took place at Camp Hero, an old Air Force base in Montauk, New York. After the success of the Philadelphia experiment, which allegedly involved making a naval ship invisible and accidentally teleporting it, the US government decided that they were going to try to push the boundaries even further. The Montauk Project worked in advanced psychological warfare techniques, mind control experiments, and the creation of a time portal, supposedly. The project supposedly involved abducting young people and using them in these experiments with the goal of harnessing psychic abilities for the military. Some stories even go that the project managed to open portals to other dimensions, allowing beings from alternate realities to enter into ours. According to some conspiracy theorists, these experiments were so dangerous that they eventually had to be shut down, with the base's records and evidence erased or buried deep in classified government files. Project Looking Glass is a conspiracy theory that the government developed technology capable of seeing into the future and even observing events in parallel realities. Supposedly, the project was part of a bigger effort by the government to understand and possibly manipulate time and reality itself. The technology, often described as a device or machine, allowed users to peer into different timelines or dimensions, giving them glimpses of potential futures or alternate versions of reality. And by observing these different realities, the government could predict events before they happened and influence the course of history. And they're kind of like Paul Atreides and Dune. Some versions of the theory claim that the device could even allow people to travel between these alternate realities. Imagine being able to see how different decisions would play out across different timelines, or accessing advanced technology from a parallel universe. I mean, why wouldn't you do it? Project Pegasus. This is a lesser known but highly intriguing conspiracy theory which involves time travel and teleportation experiments supposedly conducted by the US government in the 60s and 70s. Now, according to those who believe in the project, it was part of a secret program under DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, aimed at developing technology for time travel and interdimensional exploration. A lawyer named Andrew Basiago from Vancouver, Washington, claims to have been a participant in these experiments when he was little. He stated that the government had successfully developed time travel technology using a device based on the work of Nikola Tesla. This device was known as a chronovisor, supposedly allowing participants to travel back and forth in time and even visit alternate realities. He said he was sent on multiple missions, including a trip to witness the Gettysburg Address and a visit to the future to gather information for the government. He also said a young Barack Obama joined him on some of his adventures. The Stargate Project. Now, unlike some of the projects I've talked about on this list that are more conspiratorial and may or may not have actually existed, Project Stargate really did. It's more of a question as to whether or not anything actually came of it. The US government ran this program from 1977 to 1995, and the purpose behind it? To explore the potential of psychic phenomena for military and intelligence purposes. Yeah, the Montauk Project's not really sounding all that crazy now, is it? Stargate was specifically interested in what was referred to as remote viewing, the ability to see or describe places, people, or events without actually being physically present there. The CIA, along with other military and intelligence agencies, funded and ran these experiments, often working with people who claimed to have psychic abilities. They figured that if they could train people to accurately see distant locations or predict events, it could be a powerful tool for espionage and warfare, which, it certainly would be. In 1995, though, the project was terminated, at least officially. The story is that Project Stargate was ineffective, not reliable enough for practical use, but some believe the government actually continued the research in secret. After all, if even a fraction of the remote viewing claims were accurate, it would be a game changer for military operations.
The Mandela Effect is when a group of people misremembers a historical event or person. Writer and researcher Fiona Broom coined the term over a decade ago when she created a website detailing her recollections of former South African President Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s. Now, Nelson Mandela did not die in prison in the 1980s. After serving 27 years in prison, Mandela became president of South Africa from 1994 to 1999, and he died in 2013. Despite this, Fiona thought she remembered international news coverage of Mandela's death in the 1980s. She found out other people who shared these false memories as well, and it turns out there are so many other accounts of these so-called false memories resulting in the Mandela Effect. Or maybe, just maybe, these aren't false memories, but correct memories. What if the people whose memory is different is from a parallel universe and they merged with another universe, our universe? Now, the merge wouldn't be that noticeable, except for where some people remember the Monopoly Man with a monocle, or it being the Berenstain Bears instead of the Berenstain Bears. Up next is time travel. Is time travel real? I think so. And if people can travel from different points of time, what's to stop them from traveling from parallel universes? Nothing. Right? Now, there have been plenty of cases of people claiming to see time travelers throughout history, not to mention there's whole articles online dedicated to celebrities who have past lookalikes that claim that they are time travelers. Now then, there's actually people out there who claim to be from the future. Now, though we can't really confirm their claims, one time traveler known only as Noah claims to be from the year 2030. One of the most shocking things that he claims is that us humans will be able to communicate with aliens. He said, "We've confirmed the existence of aliens, but they're not incredibly intelligent. Right now, the government has communication with them, but we don't know it. In the future, we are actually in contact with aliens that are just as smart as humans, although we have many more advancements over them," he said. Now, many people doubted him, so he took a polygraph test to prove that he was telling the truth, and he passed. So, is this legit? Moving on to cryptid sightings. Many people have claimed to and even have recorded proof of certain cryptids. But are these cryptids just from a parallel universe and sometimes they slip into our timeline? I think so, as some of the things people have claimed to capture and see are wild. First there's Bigfoot, then there's the Loch Ness Monster, the Jersey Devil, skinwalkers, and shapeshifters, you name it. Now, there's no way these mythical creatures are real in our universe, so what if they've just traveled over? What if in another universe we're at war with different Bigfoots and that's why they hide from us here? I mean, there are some trail cameras that capture some pretty out of this world looking creatures. Well, maybe it's just because they aren't even from this world, just some food for thought. Then there's the city in the sky. In 2015 in China, thousands of residents in two areas reported separately that they saw a huge city in the sky. Onlookers, some who are said to have captured the bizarre event, were said to be mesmerized as a towering city of skyscrapers appeared from the clouds. It is believed that a parallel universe opened up for a brief amount of time. Now, obviously, other theories also exist, like the phenomenon of it being called a mirage or a secret weapon to create holographic images. Now, the mystery has sent conspiracy theories into overdrive. Now, there were previous reports of a similar sighting in China in 2011. The YouTube channel Paranormal Crucible said in a video report, the footage captured by a local resident appears to show a huge city floating in the clouds. The apparition, which was witnessed by hundreds of shocking residents, only lasted a few minutes before completely disappearing. The channel speculated it could be the result of a Project Blue Beam test, as Project Blue Beam is a prolific conspiracy theory which believes that NASA will one day simulate an alien invasion on Earth or the second coming of Christ through holograms. My opinion though, I definitely think this is one of the portals opening up by accident. Now we have the man from an unknown country. In July 1954, a man arrived at Tokyo Airport. On checking his passport, they found out that the man was from a country called Torrid. Now, as far as immigration officers were aware, Torrid was not a country that existed anywhere on Earth. When they confronted the man, he grew frustrated, and he insisted to them that Torrid did exist and had for nearly 1,000 years. When presented with a map and asked to point out the country, the man is said to have pointed to Andorra between Spain and France, as he quickly became angry and confused. Now, also, the currency bills he was carrying were from an unknown bank, the company he claimed to work for had no knowledge of him, and the hotel he claimed to have a reservation for had never heard of him either. Believing this strange man may have been a criminal, Japanese officers put him up in a nearby hotel for the night while they conducted a more thorough investigation. Now 2 guards were stationed outside the man's room to make sure he didn't escape, yet when the next morning came, the officers went to speak with the man and they were shocked to find that he had vanished without a trace. Now these circumstances have led many to the conclusion that the man had accidentally crossed into our dimension from a parallel one. Now in this parallel universe, Torrid really did exist and the man was telling the truth. Now his disappearance is often attributed to him sliding back into his own universe, again seemingly without any intention or explanation. Now there's the freaky case of Lorena Garcia Gordo. In 2008, a woman posted on an internet forum looking for advice explaining some incredibly odd changes in her life that seemingly happened overnight. Lorena Garcia Gordo claimed to have jumped parallel universes. When she originally woke up, she noticed that her bed sheets were a completely different set than the ones that were on her bed when she went to sleep, and her car was not even close to her usual spot. Then when she headed to work, she was greeted by 2 people who knew her name and were quite friendly with her, but she'd never seen them before in her life before that day. Now she also discovered that she was assigned to a completely different department in a completely different part of the building that she previously didn't even have access to at work. Then in her personal life, she was still in a relationship with her boyfriend of 7 years, despite having broken up with him 6 months prior. Now the new boyfriend she'd been dating for 4 months seemingly never existed because someone else answered when she called his number and someone else was living at his address. Now she genuinely thought that something was wrong with her and went to the doctor, but nothing was physically wrong with her. She then went to psychiatrists wondering if this was all some elaborate hallucination that was triggered by a mental breakdown of some sort, and after being evaluated they told her that she was of sound mind and all they can think was that she was just really stressed out. Now it sounds to me that she accidentally jumped timelines while she was sleeping, but that whole experience there just sounds so scary. Moving on to deja vu. The phrase deja vu is borrowed from French and means already seen. Deja vu occurs when someone perceives that they have already experienced a situation before, and their body feels familiar with the experience and the situation, and it causes confusion. Now approximately 2/3 of surveyed populations report experiencing deja vu at least one time in their lives, and it happens most often to people between 15 and 25 years of age. Now we tend to experience the feeling less as we age, and it's said if you travel a lot or regularly remember your dreams, you may be more likely to experience deja vu than others. Now someone who is tired or stressed may be prone to deja vu feelings too, and let me just say I get deja vu very often and it is trippy. Now there's not really any scientific theory for this, but one theory has led many to believe that deja vu occurs when you do something in sync with your counterparts from another dimension. Now I don't know, it's pretty cool to think about though in my opinion, and have you ever had deja vu before? Let me know in the comments. On to doppelganger. A doppelganger is a biologically unrelated lookalike or a double of a living person. You might have heard there are 7 other versions of you in the world, or at least 7 other people who look like you. Now if this is true, these other people could actually be you from another universe, but they somehow made it to ours. I mean, you've all seen the photos of people who look like current celebrities, but they're from the 1800s, right? Or those times when you get mistaken for someone. Now scientists actually did an experiment on this. The team collaborated with Canadian photographer Francois Brunel, who has been collecting and sharing portraits of lookalikes around the world since 1999 as a part of his I'm Not a Lookalike project. The experiment shows that the lookalike individuals share more genetic variants than randomly selected individuals. Now the team also found that the resemblance between doppelgangers extended beyond their looks and genetics. Although the study was designed to examine their faces, the team used a very extensive questionnaire, which revealed that physical features such as weight and height also tended to be similar in doppelgangers, as did lifestyle traits such as smoking habits and educational attainment. Now that is just insane to me. Next up is the dream realm. Dreaming is weird, and we still don't really understand the science behind it, which means that it could happen for a multitude of reasons. Something that other people, and myself included, believe is that when we dream, we go into a dream realm, which is essentially another universe. Then it's thought whatever dreams we have, we actually experience, just in a parallel universe. Now it doesn't stop there though, because it's thought if you had a dream that came true, it's because it happened to another version of you. Yeah, it's all kind of confusing and weird, but I definitely think our dreams have meaning to them, we just don't fully understand them yet. And lastly, we have shifting realities. During the first months of lockdown in 2020, people started to go a little stir crazy, and this caused them to learn how to shift realities. Now, their words, not mine. Reality shifting is a term that refers to the spiritual practice of transferring or shifting one's consciousness to an alternate reality, and or the attempt to alter the reality one is experiencing, and transcending one's physical confines to visit alternate universes. The techniques include hypnosis, meditation, biofeedback, binaural sounds, affirmations, and subliminal stimuli. So if you can shift to another universe, that means there are parallel universes, right? Now, I wish that I could shift to the reality where I am a multi-millionaire. Now, I've never tried shifting, and I don't know how much I believe it. Could it just be their imagination? I don't know, but some people swear by it.
At number 10, a multiverse created in the lab. In 2013, researchers delved into the realms of parallel universes at the University of Maryland, College Park, and Towson University. Through an unconventional experiment involving metamaterials reminiscent of invisibility cloaks, they sparked the birth of multiple universes within a lab-crafted multiverse. These alternate realms, referred to as Minkowski spacetimes, share a striking resemblance to our own, but they elegantly incorporate time as the fourth dimension, aligning neatly with Einstein's special relativity. Astonishingly, the setup behind this cosmic wizardry is surprisingly straightforward, relying on a solution of cobalt immersed in kerosene. It's a captivating testament to human ingenuity, demonstrating that we can, in a sense, engineer our own universes, offering tantalizing hints of the existence of parallel ones. If you're enjoying the video so far, please support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and ringing that notification bell. At number 9, quantum immortality. Concept born from the mind-bending world of quantum mechanics challenges our understanding of existence itself. In this thought experiment turned intriguing hypothesis, Max Tegmark delves into the idea that we might encounter multiple demises throughout our lives. So picture this. With every brush with mortality, our consciousness dances across the multiverse, slipping into the nearest timeline where our demise was narrowly avoided. It's a notion that, at first glance, may seem kinda like science fiction, but it has gained traction among those who claim to have undergone these shifts, myself included. The scientific community remains skeptical, dismissing it as a mere fantastical notion. However, for some, the reality has been altered in ways they can't explain. They recount near unaliving experiences as evidence, pointing to moments where they distinctly felt the universe pivot around them. The shift is often unnoticed until later on, leaving individuals to trace subtle differences in their new reality, like the ripples of earlier choices echoing through their existence. At number 8 is the glitch in the Matrix. Have you ever pondered the enigmatic signs of parallel universes lurking within the annals of history? The notion that we may inhabit a cosmic computer simulation governed by these unseen puppeteers in a parallel realm is as intriguing as it is unsettling. Consider the perplexing incidents that defy logical explanation. Objects that inexplicably vanish only to reappear, like my cell phone, as if manipulated by an unforeseen digital hand. Witnesses recounting the same individual in different locales simultaneously, or their sudden disappearances and inexplicable reappearance after extensive searches, raising unsettling questions about our reality. Then there are the anomalies in our mundane surroundings, where everyday objects undergo inexplicable transformations. Time itself, our constant companion, appears to warp and falter, with reports of time slips and eerie time freezes defying our understanding. Even more disconcerting, some of these glitches have been captured on camera, offering tantalizing glimpses into the possible fissures of our simulated universe. Are we all but unwitting pawns in a grand experiment? The prospect is both fascinating and terrifying. And to those with the unseen controllers, if you're listening, well, you know what to do. At number 7, the cosmic bruise. In 2017, cosmologists stumbled upon a cosmic anomaly that sent shockwaves through the scientific community, the enigmatic cold spot in the universe. Now, it's not just any cosmic bruise. It could be a lingering mark from a cataclysmic event, a collision between our universe and another. As Professor Tom Shanks of Durham University Center of Extragalactic Astronomy suggests, this cold spot might be the fossilized signature of an interdimensional encounter, a moment when our reality clashed with one of the countless others that make up this cosmic tapestry. What's truly mind-boggling is that this isn't an isolated incident. Researchers have discovered not one, but 4 of these mysterious bruises. This revelation implies that our universe has been involved in multiple inter-universal rendezvous throughout its existence. The implications are staggering. They hint at the existence of a multiverse, a mind-bending landscape of alternate realities where anything might be possible. At number 6, the Large Hadron Collider. Last year, the behemoth of science, the Large Hadron Collider, roared back to life after 3 years of meticulous upgrades. But what's all the hype? Well, it's not just about smashing particles together anymore. It's about probing the very fabric of the universe. The Higgs boson, the elusive God particle, is on the menu, and dark matter is the dessert. And it might just be the tool to unlock the secrets of a parallel universe. How, you ask? Well, it's all about those sneaky extra dimensions. In the world of theoretical physics, they're like hidden rooms in the cosmic mansion. Picture this: if extra dimensions do exist, there should be heavier versions of standard particles called Kaluza-Klein states. These lookalikes, but with more heft, could be the breadcrumbs leading us into parallel universe. If the Large Hadron Collider detectors spot a Z negative or W negative like particle with a mass of 100 times or greater, it could be the clue we've been waiting for. So brace yourself, because with the Large Hadron Collider, we might just peel back the layers of reality and find the signs of a parallel universe. At number 5, the Mandela Effect is a mind-bending puzzle that thrusts us into the intriguing realm of collective false memories. Fiona Broom's encounter with the phenomenon in 2010 sent shockwaves through our understanding of memory and reality. The curious case of Nelson Mandela's demise, while many were calling it occurring in the 1980s while he was imprisoned, challenges our grasp on historical facts. But it doesn't stop there. Classic tales like Snow White and Star Wars warp our perceptions collectively, as we mistakenly remember Mirror, Mirror on the Wall and Luke, I am your father, when the actual lines are subtly different. The Berenstein Bears, once spelt with an E, now boasts an A, while Oscar Mayer has taken a new dimension with its A instead of an E. These anomalies raise questions about parallel universes and reality shifts. Are our false memories glimpses into alternate dimensions, or simply quirks of the human cognition? At number 4, our own simulated universe. In 2018, researchers embarked on a colossal computer simulation endeavor, fashioning entirely new universes amid diverse circumstances. Now, what they unearthed was nothing short of mind-bending. These parallel realities could emerge even with dark energy levels starkly deviating from our own. As study co-author Pascal Elahi eloquently noted, quote, "Even in universes with 300 times as much dark energy as ours, life found a way," end quote. This revelation underscores the resilience of life amidst the tumultuous cosmic dance. Elahi's insight took us deeper into the cosmic rabbit hole. Accelerated expansion fueled by dark energy appeared to have a negligible sway over the birth of stars and the emergence of life-barren worlds. Consequently, the existence of planets teeming with life within alternate universes became a tantalizing possibility. At number 3 is the third man syndrome, a phenomenon that often accompanies harrowing accidents, raising eerie questions about the possibility of parallel universes intersecting with our reality. See, victims of life-threatening situations report an inexplicable presence offering guidance and encouragement. Is this a celestial entity watching over us, or perhaps an alternate version of ourselves from a parallel universe reaching out to prevent our own demise? The widespread accounts of this phenomenon add to its mystique. Could this be a glimpse into the multiverse where infinite variations of our existence coexist? The mysterious signs of parallel universes manifest in these moments of despair, challenging our understanding of reality. While we can't definitively explain third man syndrome, the comfort it provides to those facing tragedy is undeniable, offering a glimmer of hope in the mysterious tapestry of existence. At number 2, black holes or black gateways. Black holes, those mysterious cosmic entities, have long fascinated scientists and sparked intriguing theories. One theory, first proposed by Mr. Stephen Hawking himself, suggests that black holes might serve as gateways to other dimensions or parallel universes. The idea here is that whatever enters a black hole isn't obliterated, but rather transported to an entirely different realm. Now, we know that black holes indeed possess 2 openings, and this fact alone lends credibility to the notion that it might connect to separate realities. Imagine the possibilities. What if these mysterious phenomena are cosmic wormholes leading to parallel dimensions? It's a concept that challenges our understanding of the universe and beckons us to explore the unknown. And while the idea of volunteering into a venture into a black hole may seem far-fetched, it's a testament to humanity's unquenchable curiosity. Who knows what secrets these cosmic enigmas might hold, and what remarkable discoveries await those brave enough to embark on such a cosmic journey. And at number 1, the Anita experiment. The scientific discovery that proves single-handedly the existence of parallel universes. The claim begins with a hook that would tingle the spidey senses of any sci-fi enthusiast. Imagine a remote research station in Antarctica where scientists diligently hunt for cosmic rays. Now, that's intriguing enough on its own, but it gets even better. See, naturally they had their instruments facing the sky, but then these researchers suddenly detect not one, but two signals shooting out of the ground beneath them, defying all logic. See, these rays of neutrinos are supposed to come from supernova, so it's highly improbable that the rays are passing through the Earth without coming into contact with a single particle of matter, only to land on a tiny weather balloon. To make sense of this, scientists delved into over 40 papers offering a buffet of explanations. Dark matter, elusive particles called sterile neutrinos, and then, the grandest of them all, a parallel universe. Essentially a mirror image of ours, but where time runs backwards. Imagine that. This audacious idea isn't pulled out of thin air either. It's rooted in actual science, a theorem which hints that alongside our universe, an antimatter universe stretches backward through time before the Big Bang. But let's tap the brakes here because a more down-to-earth theory has surfaced. That's right, hold your antimatter horses, because as it turns out, it's more likely that these signals were simply reflected off of ice or skipped off of subglacial lakes. The truth, it seems, is more grounded, reflecting high-energy particles, not parallel dimensions. Sorry y'all, I mean, unless you want to go ahead and put away Occam's razor. At number 10 is Stephen Hawking's very last theory. The late Stephen Hawking, a big name in physics, left us with a curious theory right before his passing. You see, he believed in the existence of other parallel universes apart from our own. Hawking's final paper, co-authored by Thomas Hertog, aimed to lay down the math for a space probe that could spot evidence of these other universes, also known as the multiverse. So picture multiple universes, not just many planets, but entire realities entirely. Some are empty, others teeming with black holes, stars, and potentially life. See, this idea springs from the Big Bang Theory, the concept that the universe expanded from a singular tiny point. See, Hawking figured that our Big Bang was just one of countless others, each spawning its own universe. But there's no scientific test to actually prove the existence of these universes. This uncertainty bothered Hawking, and he wasn't a huge fan of the multiverse concept, yet he knew that to ignore it was a big mistake. Like having a theory that doesn't say anything about our universe is pretty useless. But in his final scientific quest, Hawking aimed to control the multiverse. He and Hertog developed the math for a space probe able to detect gravitational waves from multiple different Big Bangs. Thus, they believed they could test the multiverse theory, giving us an actual shot at finding evidence. Their paper, which is titled A Smooth Exit from Eternal Inflation, submitted just before Hawking passed away, got scientists buzzing. Some say that this paper could have scored Hawking another Nobel Prize if it was just published just a little bit earlier. The ideas opened the door to finding proof of other universes, which is a mind-blowing prospect in the scientific realm. At number 9 is filling gaps in the scientific understanding with the multiverse. There are a whole ton of things that just don't currently add up in our cosmic playground. Take dark matter, for instance. We literally have no idea what it is or how it operates, and yet it is the explanation for why our universe keeps expanding at an accelerating rate. You see, galaxies are supposed to be getting closer together thanks to the mutual pull of gravity, and yet here's this basically undetectable force that's overcoming the force of gravity and doing so at an exponential rate. This discovery implies the existence of a dark energy that counteracts gravity on cosmic scales, and yet the only thing that we know about dark energy is its name. Now, scientists have attempted to come up with a few different explanations for the origin of this counter-gravitational energy. One explanation is that, according to quantum theory, subatomic particles are constantly and spontaneously manifesting themselves into existence and then annihilating themselves out of existence. This process should endow the vacuum of space with energy, which could explain the whole, expanding universe thing. However, that energy would be 120 orders of magnitude too large to explain the anti-gravity effects that we witness in space. And so, the multiverse concept ties those ideas together in a neat little bow, claiming that perhaps in this universe, dark matter just isn't as strong as it should be, whereas in other universes it's literally tearing everything apart. But that's not the only gap in our knowledge that the multiverse theory fills so gracefully. For instance, take string theory, which says there are like 11 different dimensions, but I don't know about you, but I only see 4. Now that's a bit odd, but some scientists think that maybe string theory isn't just about our universe, but every possible universe out there. Also, have you ever considered about how everything just seems just perfect for life to exist in our universe? Like the strength of forces between particles and how atoms stick together. Well, as it turns out, if there were more dimensions like string theory claims to be, then things definitely would not work out for life like it does here. So this multiverse idea could mean there are lots of different universes out there where life totally didn't exist at all. And maybe, just maybe, we're in one of those very few special ones where everything just worked out just perfectly for life to thrive. If you're enjoying this video so far, please support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and ringing that notification bell. At number 8 is the Bicep 2 gravity waves. So there are these crazy cool ripples in space called gravitational waves. They're like essentially messages from way back when the universe was just a baby. Now these waves are discovered by the Bicep 2 team, which holds some seriously mind-blowing hints about the existence of our universe. So you know how after the Big Bang things expanded super fast? Well, these waves suggest that the expansion wasn't a one-time deal. It's almost as if the universe hit the fast forward button multiple times, creating not just one, but a bunch of universes. And get this, the other universes might not play by the same rules as ours. They could be totally different, maybe with extra dimensions, like I previously mentioned, or bizarre stuff we can't even wrap our heads around. Plus, they might be way far off, like beyond what we can spy on with even the best space gadgets. So what Bicep 2 found was like stumbling upon a map to a whole new multi-dimensional world, hinting that our universe might just be a tiny piece of something unimaginably vast. At number 7 is the AMS experiment positron excess. A whole bunch of antimatter particles were discovered just hanging out in space. Picture them as the mirror image of the regular matter that makes up everything we see around us. We're still trying to figure out exactly where these particles are coming from, and one explanation is neighboring universes. Allow me to explain. Now there's a super cool gadget called the Alpha Magnetic Spectrometer, or AMS for short. It's perched up there on the International Space Station, keeping close watch on antimatter particles. And so the AMS found something really strange. A way larger number of these opposite twin particles, known as positrons, than anybody expected. The discovery was a cosmic clue pointing towards the existence of dark matter. So dark matter is the invisible substance actually making up a whopping chunk of our universe, even though we can't actually see it. Scientists have a hunch that when dark matter particles collide, they produce the very positrons that the AMS is spotting. This discovery of excess positrons could potentially be an evidence at the existence of another universe. You see, if dark matter exists and behave like scientists think it does, then it could be a bridge in the understanding of our universe with the multiverse. But unfortunately, we can't know for sure because science just ain't there yet. We're in the middle of this cosmic puzzle trying to figure out if these positrons are truly pointing us towards dark matter or if there's something else entirely going on in the universe. At number 6 is the cosmic microwave background. So the cosmic microwave background radiation is kind of like a glow that fills the entire universe. It's the afterglow of the Big Bang, the moment when the universe burst into existence. Now scientists study the cosmic microwave background to understand the early universe better. It's incredibly uniform, but there are tiny temperature fluctuations within it. These fluctuations have helped scientists map the distribution of matter in the early universe. Now here's where this idea gets intriguing in terms of the multiverse idea. You see, some researchers have observed that these strange odd cold spots in the cosmic microwave background don't fit expected patterns. These spots are unusually big and cold compared to what current models predict. Now one hypothesis is that these cold spots might be evidence of collisions between our universe and another parallel universe. The idea is that if our universe collide or interact in some way with another, it could leave a mark on the cosmic microwave background, manifesting as these peculiar cold spots. It's a speculative idea and there's no definitive proof yet, but still, the study of these anomalies in the cosmic microwave background adds fuel to the conversation about the possibility of a multiverse. At number 5 is the fifth force and muon's magnetic moment. Muons are like the heavier cousins of electrons, playing a big role in the world of subatomic particles. Scientists at a Fermilab do this cool experiment where they trap billions of muons in a ring and watch them closely as they move. Now these muons, they have a magnetic quality that make them wobble as they zip around the ring. Now in the science world, there's this thing called the standard model that predicts how these muons should wobble. But here's the twist. Sometimes what they actually do doesn't match up with the standard model's predictions whatsoever. Now here's where it gets interesting. See, if these muons act differently, it might mean that there's something else out there, a mysterious particle, maybe a whole new force of nature influencing these muons. It could also mean that there's a whole new other set of rules in a parallel universe interacting with our own. Think of it as us glimpsing into another reality, something where the rules just don't line up with what we have here. At number 4 is quantum entanglement. In quantum physics, particles get tangled up together, and when that happens, their properties become connected. Even if one of these particles ends up super far away, what happens to one particle affects the other instantaneously, breaking the rules of how we understand space and time. Now, how does this link back to the multiverse? Well, some scientists wonder if quantum entanglement could be a sign of parallel universes being connected to one another. The theory goes that if particles in our universe can be entangled, then what's stopping them from being entangled with particles in other universes too, like they're communicating across different realities. So if particles can be connected across vast distances in our universe, maybe the entanglement stretches into other realities, hinting at a network between different versions of reality. Might be a mind-boggling idea that quantum entanglement might be a key that unlocks the door to the existence of parallel universes. At number 3 is Leo Broussard at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. So scientists at Oak Ridge National Labs have been on the hunt for something pretty wild, which is the multiverse itself. They're using neutrons, tiny subatomic particles that hang out at atoms, to find clues about this idea of a mirror neutron, a right-handed universe, kind of like the opposite of our left-handed one. It's kind of like an experiment where they're trying to break into the Stranger Things, you know, the upside down there. They're shooting these neutrons into a tube, hoping they'll sneak through a blocked end into the other side, basically looking for signs of where a parallel universe doesn't line up with our own. But unfortunately, there hasn't been any luck so far. The scientists admitted that they haven't spotted any evidence of parallel universes or strange interactions with these neurons flying through what they call the dark sector. They're not giving up though. More sensitive experiments are in the cards, so we might hear more about this experiment in the future. The scientists made it clear that finding something new here doesn't automatically mean that they've found a whole new dimension. It could just mean that they've got a better grasp on the particles that make up our own universe. At number 2 is the multiverse created in the lab. In 2013, researchers delved into the realms of parallel universes at the University of Maryland and College and Towson University. Through an unconventional experiment involving metamaterials reminiscent of invisibility cloaks, they sparked the birth of multiple universes within a lab-created multiverse. These alternate realms, referred to as Minkowski spacetimes, elegantly incorporate time as a fourth dimension, aligning neatly with Einstein's special relativity. Astonishingly, the setup behind this cosmic wizardry is surprisingly straightforward, relying on a solution of cobalt-immersed kerosene. It's a captivating testament to human ingenuity, demonstrating that we can, in a sense, engineer our own universes, offering tantalizing hints at the existence of parallel ones, because if we can simulate our own universes, who's to say that our universe isn't simulated? And at number 1 is the Anita experiment, the scientific discovery that proves single-handedly the existence of parallel universes. Imagine a remote research station in Antarctica where scientists diligently hunt for cosmic rays. Now that's intriguing on its own, but it gets better. See, naturally, they had their instruments facing the sky, but then these researchers suddenly detect not one, but 2 signals shooting out of the ground beneath them, defying all logic. You see, these rays of neutrinos are supposed to come from supernova, so it's super improbable that these rays are passing through the Earth without coming into contact with this single particle of matter, only to land on a tiny weather balloon in the sky. So to make sense of this, scientists delved into over 40 papers offering a buffet of explanations like dark matter, elusive particles called sterile neutrinos, and then, the grandest of them all, a parallel universe. Essentially a mirror image of our own, but where time runs backwards. This audacious idea isn't pulled out of thin air. It's rooted in actual science, a theorem which hints that alongside our universe, an antimatter universe stretches backwards through time before the Big Bang. But let's tap on the brakes here, because there are more down-to-earth theories that have surfaced. So hold your antimatter horses, because as it turns out, it's more likely that these signals were reflected off the ice or skipped off subglacial lakes. The truth, it seems, is more grounded in reality, reflecting high-energy particles, not parallel dimensions. Sorry y'all, I mean, unless you want to go ahead and put away Occam's razor.